Hello, everyone, and before we get into this show, make sure to follow the Motley Experience on Instagram and Twitter at Motley Experience. That's MotleyXperience. You can also look us up on Facebook that way, or just by searching for the Motley Experience, fully spelled out. MotleyExperience.com. Also, if you want to go to our official site where you'll find all sorts of original content beyond just Stuff Explained, some great articles on there as well. If you happen to be interested in your humble host, that's me, Aristides Marusas, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at ATMarusas. That's ATMAROUSAS. Also, my personal website, atmarusas.com, for projects that I am involved with or have been involved with beyond Stuff Explained and the Motley Experience. So if you could do that, that would be great. If you want to talk about this show, use the hashtag Stuff Explained, and we can start a community. That's one goal I have. I've mentioned that in previous episodes, to discuss the topics of this and other episodes, especially big ideas. I think those would be very beneficial and interesting to talk about. So please go ahead and do that, and wait. This is me waiting. Okay, there you go. Yep, click that follow button. All right. Yep. That other follow. Good. Awesome. All right, and now it's time for the show. Life is a journey of exploration, learning, and growth. Basically, the world is full of fascinating stuff. Join me, Aristides Marusas, as I uncover interesting facts and discuss big ideas on Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience. Experience your world. Hello, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. This is Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience, if you haven't gotten that already from the introduction. But just in case, now you know. So this episode will be dedicated to the history of Thanksgiving. That's right. This show will be uploaded and will first air on the Monday beginning Thanksgiving week. So I think it's apropos to dedicate this episode to the history of Thanksgiving, and specifically demystifying or correcting some past historical fallacies, shall we say, to be a bit blunt, that have been taught here in the United States regarding the first Thanksgiving. So stay tuned for a re-education on the history of Thanksgiving. If you live in the United States of America, you've been taught that our celebration of Thanksgiving dates back to the early 17th century, specifically the iconic feast that supposedly occurred amongst the Pilgrims and the local Native American tribe, the Wampanoags, an event considered to be the first Thanksgiving. But is this the real truth? So let's begin with the title of First Thanksgiving. So we can clear that up because we know that cultures and civilizations have been celebrating the harvest and giving thanks to their deities throughout human history. Yes, even in ancient times, there were events that resembled what we would now call Thanksgiving. They would give thanks for their harvests, for their health, and things of that nature. So this wasn't the first Thanksgiving. Also, New England colonists were very prone to celebrating multiple Thanksgivings throughout the year to offer prayers to God after events like military victories, for example, that sometimes occurred against Native American tribes, and perhaps this was more than just sometimes, but I digress, or the end of a drought. Just examples, throwing them out there. So, on this basis alone, we can rule out the common misconception that the famous Pilgrims' Thanksgiving at Plymouth was the first. before you start making excuses, not that you would, but just hypothetically, that it was a first Thanksgiving between Europeans and Native Americans, this also isn't really true. So this Thanksgiving wasn't the first to be held on what would become American soil between Europeans and Native Americans at all. In fact, on September 8th, 1565, Spanish admiral and explorer Pedro Menendez de Aviles and 800 Spanish settlers founded the city of St. Augustine in modern-day Florida. Upon arriving, they celebrated a Thanksgiving Mass and invited members of the local Soloi tribe to the feast. This event occurred almost 60 years before the Puritan Pilgrim Thanksgiving at the Plymouth Plantation in Massachusetts. But because of Great Britain's pursuing dominance over the continent, the Pilgrim story became mainstream, and the Spanish Thanksgiving was all but forgotten. So now to move on to clearing up misconceptions about the Pilgrims' Thanksgiving itself. There does not seem to be any record or records indicating that the Wampanoag were actually invited to the event. Instead, it seems likely that they came on their own for diplomatic reasons. There are also about 90 Native Americans in attendance, almost double the amount of Pilgrims. Over the next 2 days, and this whole event occurred over 3 days, so over the next 2 days, both groups did seem to be able to socialize without incident. The Wampanoag brought venison, while the Pilgrims provided fowl, fish, eels, shellfish like lobster, vegetables, and beer. There were no functioning ovens yet, so no pies. This might sound like it was a promising beginning, this friendsgiving of sorts, and it did yield to a few years of peace. However, it all ended in 1675 when King Philip's War began, leading to the deaths of hundreds of colonists and thousands of Native Americans. Psst, hey you. Yeah, you over there listening to Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience. So if you're already listening to Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience, why not take that next step and head on over to themotleyexperience.com/connect. Then all you got to do is enter your email address and you instantly become a part of the Motley Experience community. By doing this, you'll get the weekly insider newsletter that gives you all the latest and greatest from the Motley Experience, including updates from your favorite podcast, Stuff Explained. Again, themotleyexperience.com/connect. There's absolutely nothing like having custom-made quality music for whatever your project might be. So if you're in the market for custom-made music, look no further than Retcon Industries. They provide tailor-made music for all sorts, whether it's professional wrestling, podcasts, trailers, and so much more. They can do it for you. So for more information, go to www.retconindustries.com or email my good friend Greg at retcongreg@gmail.com. Retcon Industries can also be found on Facebook and on Instagram at Retcon Industries. That's RETCON Industries. The first National Thanksgiving Proclamation was issued in 1789 by George Washington to give thanks and prayer for the end of the War of Independence and the successful ratification of the Constitution. After 1798, the U.S. Congress left declarations of Thanksgiving up to individual states. While New Englanders celebrated regularly, Thanksgiving was slow to be adopted by Southerners. In fact, proposing a national day of Thanksgiving was pretty controversial during the early 19th century, and it wasn't until 1863, during the height of the Civil War, when Northerners had control of the government, that Abraham Lincoln decided to schedule an official day of Thanksgiving for the last Thursday in November. This held until 1939, when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt moved the holiday up a week to try and reinvigorate holiday sales during the Great Depression. This was met with some backlash, actually, and the president eventually had to move Thanksgiving to the fourth Thursday of November, only about 2 years after he changed the date to begin with. Now for some fun facts about turkeys and Thanksgiving. So there's no recording of turkey being served at the Pilgrims' Thanksgiving. Now, while it is known there was wild fowl on offer, most historians believe it was more likely to be ducks and geese than wild turkeys. There's no direct way of knowing how the turkey became associated with the Thanksgiving holiday, but some factors might include the writings of Charles Dickens and Sarah Josepha Hale, who mentioned turkeys being the center of holiday meals in their books. Also, the abundance and affordability of turkeys was likely a contributing factor. Also, the size, because a turkey could feed more, it could feed a whole family or a larger family than your standard chicken or duck. Now, wild turkeys, while they were quite abundant early on, became endangered in the early 20th century, but the population has since rebounded, thankfully. Additionally, with turkey farms, which provide succulent, full, and specially bred turkeys that provide basically extra meat for people. So they continue to be an affordable way to celebrate the holidays and feed as many people as possible. In fact, nearly 90% of Americans eat turkey on Thanksgiving. And that wraps up this episode of Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience, this 101 on the history of Thanksgiving, shall we say. I personally found it interesting to uncover the truth, or at least what we believe based on records is the truth now on the first Thanksgiving, or rather what really wasn't the first Thanksgiving, but just a Thanksgiving that has become part of American history and lore, canonized in our youth. So it begs the question, how much else that we learned is either exaggerated or wholly false? So that's some food for thought leading into the holiday season. Some bleak thoughts. But on the positive side now, you know something. It's something you can bring up at the Thanksgiving table. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Again, make sure to reach out, #StuffExplained on Twitter. Also, you can comment on Instagram, whether you enjoyed the show, even if you didn't enjoy, but just be nice because, I'm sensitive and it's the holidays and stuff like that. But yeah, feel free to comment, get that community going, and enjoy your Thanksgiving holiday. Until next week, try not to eat too. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm going to stuff my face. Stuff Explained is written and produced by me, Aristides Marusas. Music is produced by the talented Greg Massey of Retcon Industries. Visit themotleyexperience.com for more thoughtful original content, and you can also find links to the sources used for each episode of Stuff Explained. Like us on Facebook at The Motley Experience, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Motley Experience, and use the hashtag Stuff Explained. If you like this episode, leave a review, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thank you for listening.